live? Okay. Okay, it is 5:30. I'll call the meeting to order and ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Give everyone just another moment or two to review our consent agenda items below. Does anyone need more time? Okay, we'll move on then. We'll need a motion to approve the November 25th, 2024 regular board meeting agenda as presented.
So moved. Support.
Any conversation? Okay, all in favor, show of hands, please. Thank you. Okay, up first, we have Ella White PAC presentation. Yep,
Yes.
perfect, come on up.
And I'll just do a little introduction. This is Kristen Barden, the president of the Ella White Parent Advisory Committee. And so part of our strategic plan, family and community partnerships, want to bring people in. That's why we have a number of presentations today. But also the PACs at each of our buildings do amazing work. And so we're just trying to get that message out so everyone knows and put in a shameless plug for. We would love people to join PACs at each of our buildings. There, you didn't have to do that part of it.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm Kristen. I am president, have been president of the PAC for the last probably 5 or 6 years. Our board members consist of Jenny Werda, our treasurer, Samantha Darga, our vice president, and Crystal Noble, our secretary, and our dedicated, wonderful handful of parents that volunteer for everything that we do. We support 428 kids and 72 staff members at Ella White. Our 2 major fundraising that we do, we did a calendar fundraiser this year, our first year doing it, and our school raised $15,972. So we were very excited about that. Our second one, which is coming up next weekend, which is our annual Christmas Bazaar, which we'd love to see you guys all at. Can also volunteer to help. We love that too. It started back in the 1980s as a little teeny tiny Christmas bazaar in the halls of Ella White, and we've kind of expanded and ran out of room, not so much for vendors, but for shoppers, and they love to come. So we were at the Thunder Bay Junior High this year, and as always, it's the first Saturday of December from 9 to 3. We've got teacher raffle baskets. We have big sale. Not only does Ella White do it, we also included Pied Piper, and all of their students made crafts to sell at our show. We have Santa and Mrs. Claus coming. Campus Closet is going to be open, so they can go over and shop and get their Alpina swag for Christmas. And we also are having a barbecue pulled pork sandwich for the 8th grade girls shooters travel basketball team. So they can raise funds. So it's really kind of turned in from an Ella White Christmas Bazaar to a community big event. So again, we'd love to see you all there. With that money, with the money that we raise, we do a girl and a guest dance every year, a boy and a buddy event, which this year is going to be a movie probably at Sanctuary Cinema for our boys. With that money raised, we're not going to be charging, so then everyone has an opportunity to come. We do a book fair twice a year. The first year in the fall, the money that we raise goes to the teachers to fill their classroom libraries. This year they were able to spend up to $200 for each teacher on scholastic books to fill their libraries. The next one coming up in the spring, that'll go to the library, and we'll spend close to about $1,000 there funding the library with new books for all the kids. We do Teacher Appreciation Week. We provide lunches during conferences. June Jubilee, we provide bounce houses, an ice cream truck. We do Popcorn Fridays, Popsicle Fridays. Again, we're a small but mighty group, and of course we'd always love more volunteers, so we're trying to get the word out, and then of course we're there for any general help that the teachers need, or the staff, or anything. We're just there for the kids, and we love it, and we've got a really dedicated, small but great board.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
for coming.
So Okay, well, thank you. And again, call for volunteers. It's a great time to come in and learn how the PACs operate at each building, because as the PAC members' children move from elementary to secondary and so on, it leaves some big holes. So you have time to come in, learn how everything operates, and then step into one of those roles of president or other officers. So. All right, our next one is a team's presentation by Michigan State Police Trooper Jason Kunith. Come on down. And can I share a story as you're walking up? I think you did a great training for us, I think 2 years ago. Well, actually, yeah, the last 2 years, correct? At the beginning of our school year, certainly safety training.
Yep.
And then I interacted with you at some point at a building, and when you walked in with your hat, you're rather intimidating when you walk in. And, you do a great job of balancing that with reaching out and connecting with the kids, which is the setup for the great work you're doing through the teams programming and all of that. So
I try not to look too intimidating. I mean, there's times I have to, but
Yep.
the hat can do it. I usually just take the hat off once I'm inside. But
Yeah.
usually when the hat's on, I'm all business. So
there you go.
yeah. So when you see me with the hat on, that's when you got to worry. So
I got a little nervous when you walked in.
and one of the things I guess that we'll start with the team program is everybody remembers DARE. AJ, I think you had it. I mean, I had it in elementary school. We went to high school together, but I guess we can say it's somewhat similar. It's a big part of it is like crime prevention. So we're talking to the kids about all the issues they're facing now, which are not the same 20 years ago. I've done nonstop internet safety presentations is what I've been getting lately, because a lot of the kids just, whether it be they're not regulated on what they're doing, they just don't know any better, they're getting themselves into trouble. So this program was put together. You go through like 40 hours of training. We do it down at our headquarters in Lansing, and it's not, yes, the state police run it, but there's nothing on here that says state police. Like, this isn't for the state. We've had people come from Alabama agencies to train on how to do this. So receive 40 hours of training. It's classroom management, public speaking. We cover a lot of stuff with, juveniles, the psychology of everything. And I'll hand these out to everyone, but I'm assuming you need me to continue to talk into the microphone.
Yeah.
Okay. So these lessons, they're more of a guide. Like, when I look through these lessons, like, I don't have to stick to exactly what's in them. I know there's times things can be sensitive with kids, and like I always try and bring up, especially when I'm talking about internet safety, like the topic of suicide is always going to come up in that. But I usually talk to school staff, make sure that's all right. I know there's times they've sent out letters to parents ahead of time if they want their kids to opt out of things. Sometimes the school may have just experienced something slightly traumatic, and we don't need to, go down that road for that. And our goal is with this, it's kindergarten through 12th. So we have lessons for everyone. When we do the younger grades, we have visual aids we can use as well. I mean, I know one of the fun ones the kids loved was, what is 911? Just explaining to them the basics of it, what an emergency is, what you expect when you call 911. How to do it. I mean, 99% of them are going to be doing it from a cell phone, so hopefully they know how to make an emergency call from that phone. Our radio dispatch, we do a mock 911 call with my phone. These are basic lessons that you as parents probably can't do a mock 911 call. I guess that's not an option, so something like that is a great thing. But the big thing I like to tell the kids, I know you said I'm wearing the hat, intimidating. I'm not trying to intimidate the kids or scare them, but I try to make sure that they're aware of the fact that not knowing that you're breaking the law is never an excuse. Prosecutors don't always take that into consideration. So some of these kids they're victims of online bullying. Well, there's a lot of times there's crimes that are being broken. There's laws that are being broken where kids can face criminal charges. So biggest thing here is crime prevention. My goal is to prevent us from having victims. There's always going to be people out there that are going to commit crimes. But I want to stop as many victims as possible. And the biggest example I give to the kids is every stolen vehicle complaint I've ever taken in my career, where do you think the keys were? In the car. All that person would have had to do was take the keys inside, so they're not accessible. Car never would have been stolen. Maybe a different car would have gotten stolen, but I would have prevented them from being a victim. So if anybody has any questions, I'll take a few minutes to answer some questions about it, but that's kind of the gist of the program. And it's just one of those great ways to make contact with kids. Obviously, positive law enforcement interactions too. It's great for us because we want kids to be able to trust us, talk to us, because everything they see online is kind of questionable sometimes, so.
Are these, like, thinking back to Dare was kind of scheduled, something like every Friday, is this something similar like that, or is it as needed, or?
As needed,
Okay.
with all the lessons that are in here, I've had principals hand it out to the teachers, and they say, hey, this is the issue I'm seeing in this class. I'll come in and do that lesson for one class, one for another. They might group every grade together, pick 2-3 lessons. It's just a matter of what they think the issue is, you know, what's going to benefit them. I mean, ideally, we'd love to be able to go through almost every lesson and start. It'd be great if, I won't do this forever. Like, this is, you know, like a temporary assignment for me. It'll be 3-4 years, and then I'll be back working the road doing the criminal complaints rather than hoping to prevent it. But for them to see us from kindergarten through 12th grade talking about this stuff, you know, those, I don't know if you remember, did you have Officer Levine? Well, you would have been in country school. So
I had Jim, I had the sheriff,
Okay.
Jim Marquette.
So I had Officer John Levicek. I don't know if anybody remembers him. And he was helping in a police department because I went to Besser School. So, like, I remember the lessons that I was taught by him. So you can't get through to everybody. You just hope you can at least get through to a handful, if nothing else. So it's kind of the hope, I guess. But we'll keep trying it. So we have, I don't know if I mentioned, we have 2 APD officers that are trained for this, and then one of the deputies as well. So, and with me, I can go anywhere in the state to help out. So I told them if they need help, you know, let me know.
Yeah.
So if you guys have any other questions, we'll do that, and I'll hand out the flyer that has a list of all the lessons within.
And feedback from staff and students and community is tremendous. You're doing a great job, so it's a much needed resource.
Thanks for putting the time into it.
Thank you.
I was not a fan of public speaking.
Passed, you did great.
It took a minute. I mean, I don't want to say I'm a fan of it, but it's like, it's work. It's just no big deal anymore. But a year, 2 years ago, I would have been rather gone and had a fight with somebody than talk for 5 minutes. So. But if nobody else has any questions, I'll hand these out to you guys, and then I will. You have my contact info. Are you able to
Yeah.
give that out if anybody? Or you want me to hand out a few cards?
You could do that too.
Okay.
Yep, the more the better, so.
Throw a few of my cards up here if anybody wants one at the end of the day.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Okay. Are we okay, Susan? Okay. Okay.
All right, Ms. Marceau, come on up.
I was trying to get the picture uploaded. He then ate with our kids at lunch.
Oh, yeah?
I have a picture of him eating lunch with the kids at Wilson.
Nice.
Didn't get a chance to upload it. Tried to do it real quick. Wasn't that good.
Send that to me when you get a chance. Lieutenant is always blogging for public.
Yes, it's on our Facebook page. I did post it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll get it off Facebook then.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Wilson, good news. Once Jenny's all set.
Usually it pops up down here. What's going on? Usually it's down here.
What's that?
Oh, there we go, that actually looks good. So I can't follow it here. Okay, so I am the principal of Wilson Community School, and I'm here to share some amazing news that's happening at Wilson. So we have many things happening that we're super proud of, but this is one area where I think we've really did a good job this year. This fits under the strategic plan of child and development. And what we're really working on is our PBIS, and it is basically an intervention support system that is evidence-based, that supports our behavior in our school. This is a definition, a long version definition of what PBIS is, and MTSS. So when you hear all of us throwing out all these acronyms for you, this kind of helps give you an idea of what PBIS is, what MTSS is, and then now we have SEB that is in here as well. So what we're doing this year, just to kind of give you a journey of where our PBIS started. So in 2005, it was really initiated in the building levels of all the schools, and then the district engaged in it in about, with the support of MTSS in 2013. And what you'll hear in the schools is we're pause, Besser's bark, and so you'll hear many of those acronyms being used. And we've always had these in the schools, but in June of this year, with the staff turnaround, we were able to participate in a 2-day PBIS refresh workshop at the AMA ESD. And we really honed in on our manuals and different things and put everything in one place. And then now when a new staff member walks into our building, or we have additional staff members come in, we can hand them this manual, and it really talks about what the expectations are at Wilson School. Then in August, we looked at our matrices and our posters, and we created posters to be put up across the whole entire school, and I'll show you those pictures in a minute. Then in October, we completed a school-wide PBIS, tiered fidelity inventory, and it looked at 15 different areas, and we ranked ourselves from 0 to 2. And then we came up with action steps of what we're going to do to make sure that we change those 0s to 2s, and then how do we maintain those 2 scores, and I will show you that coming up with some pictures. We also, in November, just recently did a PBIS walkthrough, and it was completed by Megan Gothier. She came into the school, and basically what she does is she walks through the school and asks, like a custodian, what does pause mean? And then she asks the students, what does pause mean? How do you show those expectations? Who's teaching those expectations? So it's somebody coming into the school and asking the questions, and we're looking to see, is this compliant in our school? Are they able to answer all those questions? And I'll show you those results as well. And then now moving forward, we will be creating a professional development schedule and to really improve those areas of need where we scored low on. So here's our manual. In this manual, you will find everything for Tier 1 behavior supports. So there's like classroom managed behaviors, office managed behaviors. What are the expectations in the building for behaviors, and how do you handle them? So everybody has a manual. This is Wilson's manual. So anybody that steps into my building, they're handed this. We go over this every year at the beginning of the year. We also revisit it throughout the year as well, discussing all the elements that are in this manual. The biggest thing we looked at was our PBIS matrix. And 2 of the things that we added to the matrix is what are the responsibilities of staff? So what should it look like as staff are walking down the hall? They should also be modeling these behaviors. And then we also added coping skills. So this really brings in our second steps curriculum, and it talks about what kids can do in situations, like we talk about empathy and, taking those deep breaths, or do you need to walk out and take a break? So we're not escalated in our classroom. So we really brought in the coping strategies and coping skills, which now creates an SEB, social emotional behavior matrix. This is what our posters look like. So there's the matrix. That matrix is in our hallways. It is also in every single classroom. And then in the hallways and any of the designated areas, classrooms, you will see them like separated into single posters, and we have those hanging all the way throughout the building. So the kids are aware of these are the expectations in this specific area. So we had to also look at our acknowledgement system and what we're currently doing. We hand out tickets daily called pause tickets. Wilson has created a spreadsheet, and we were noticing that the 3rd through 5th grade classes were not really handing in their pause tickets. So when the pause tickets are handed in, they are randomly drawn at the end of every week, and they can come down to the pause bin. We are noticing a decrease in the 3rd through 5th graders utilizing these pause tickets. They were kind of hoarding them in their desks or just not really using them. So we talked about as a leadership team, what are some ideas we could do, and we came up with a pause store galore. It has hit Wilson School. It is crazy what has happened. So basically, if you earn a pause ticket, you can come down to the pause store galore and put your ticket in one of those bags. And those were all ideas from the students of what they would like to see in the pause store galore. So I have things like nerd clusters, pickles, anything that they would like to see there. And it is hit Wilson School like crazy. They want to come down. They want these pause tickets. Teachers are running pause tickets like crazy. I mean, and our positive behavior is just exploding. We also implemented the Superstar Student Squares. So this is above and beyond behavior. So for example, today a student had dropped their lunch tray and another student walked up to that student, helped them pick it up, helped them clean it up, and they were not prompted to do something like this. So one of our staff members calls attention to that and says, wow, that is a superstar square. Go out and put your name on a superstar square and go put it on the Superstar Square chart. And the goal is that as a school community, we are working to fill 200 superstars, and then we will have a whole school-wide initiative celebration of some kind. It could be a free recess or something that they will do as a whole school community. So it's filling up. We're hoping to keep adding to that. And that's a big deal for them to step out into the hall and put that up there. Here's a picture of the students. On Friday, they all won. 5 students were picked to win pickles from the Source Store, and that was like a big, huge thing, dill pickles, and there they are. Super excited because they won the dill pickles. And then, so in October, we did the tier fidelity inventory, and this is where we looked at just our universal supports in tier 1, and there was 15 areas, and this is our score. So any area where you see a 1 or a 0, we sat down as a leadership group, and we would bring this to my staff meetings as well, and we talk about what is the action plan to make sure we're improving these areas. So one example is back up. So our goal is to be at least 70% or higher. So we are at 73%, but that is not good enough for me. So we will improve in those areas to get it higher. But I was excited to see with that. We were at 73%. It was actually really, really good to see. So one example is our behavior expectations. So in order to score a 1, your behavior expectations identified may not include, like a matrix may be posted, but in order to get that next high level 2, 90% of the staff can list at least 67% of the expectations. So as we sat as a leadership team, there is no way we could specifically say that 90% of our staff could list those expectations. So then what you do next is you do a TFI walkthrough, and that's where we have a person come through and do the walkthrough that the kids don't know, staff doesn't know, and we were able to do that this last month, and our results were pretty amazing. I was super excited. 100% of the students could answer the questions, and 100% of them just recently earned a pause ticket, and 100% of the students knew what to do with the pause ticket after they received one. So that was so exciting to hear. We also talked to staff, and 8 staff members were interviewed, and that included my custodian, 2 teachers, and 5 IAs. So 100% could list the school-wide expectations. 75% could have explicitly taught the expectations, and then 88% recognized positive behavior with a pause ticket in the last week. So one thing, like, I look at the 75% and say, okay, how can we improve that? Actually, everybody is teaching the expectations, but what they don't realize is that even when you're correcting someone in the hall, you're teaching the expectations. So then I'll just talk about that with my support staff. Like, you are teaching the expectations, because when you're reminding a student to walk down the hall, you're you're teaching them those expectations. So that's just a conversation I need to have, and that score should definitely be lifted. So that was really exciting to see, and 100% at the top, we had our visible expectations, so, and that was the result of our walkthrough. So our next steps is to create a professional development plan for the year around Tier 1 behavior supports, and then create a student survey to gather information from our student population. So those are our next steps. Any questions?
You always do such fun stuff.
It's a good plan to put in place. It gives them,
Can you talk a little?
it gives them responsibility for their actions, and it gives them support for when their actions show empathy and kindness, and without having to be prompted to do so. So I really think it's a great, it's just nothing. It's similar to when I was in teaching, what we did is just now we have to update it because there's different, when I was teaching, 5 or 6 years ago, expectations and behaviors are we just have to update it. So, and you've updated it, so it's great.
If I remember correctly, Tier 1 is for everybody, Tier 2 is a selected group, and much smaller, and then Tier 3 is the neediest kids.
Correct.
Yeah.
That is correct. Yep. And so right now, we're really focusing on our Tier 1.
Behaviorally as well as intellectually. And
Yes, correct. So this is just behavior information.
this is for everybody, what you're talking about.
Yep, Tier 1, yep. This is for all, yep. And this is just the behavior, so then there's a whole separate piece of work you do with academics. So this is just really taking the pieces of behavior and how are we improving and keeping that going.
Do we still do like sit-down SEL, like feeling time, or are we doing more of this now?
Can you, what did you?
Do you remember SEL, the sessions? I remember I went to some of those where the kids all sit down on the rug.
Oh,
and
yeah, proactive
talk
circles.
Talk about feelings and.
Yeah.
Are
Yep.
we doing that still, or are we doing more of this kind of thing? Or?
So that is, you're talking about our social emotional curriculum. It
Yes,
is
SEL.
embedded in the matrix, so you'll see many of those things embedded in the matrix, but yes, that social emotional curriculum is still happening on top of this.
Yeah, so but it's more blended with this much more sort of active kind of, I like that better. I think, successful experiences with good behavior, nothing is addictive like success, and it sounds like you're really onto something.
Did pickles come from somewhere special or just from our kitchen or?
So the pickles came from Seymour's. My secretary works at Seymour's, and she's like, they are a hot thing.
Yeah.
They are $1, and I cannot keep them in stock. And I'm like, could you get 5 of them and bring them to Wilson School? And she's like, yes, I will pick up 5. And so she brought them, and then that day I handed them out, and they are really stinky. So we had to make sure to get them. They were like double bagged, and then I said, okay, when would you like these? And so we talked when their snack time was.
Yep.
And they were handed out. They were so excited.
I was gonna say.
And the pickle bag,
Your kids have
honestly,
pickles yet?
is stacked with tickets. It
Yeah.
is like one of my top bags,
Wow.
the pickles.
You're gonna go home and ask your kids now, aren't you?
Oh, yeah.
And you're doing this in their classroom? They, at their snack time, they can eat these pickles?
Yep.
Oh, no, just think about being in
Most
a classroom with pickles.
Most of them bring them in their lunch. Pickles are a very common thing
Yeah,
in their
they're very
lunches. And so
popular.
this was just,
Yeah.
I asked them, I'm like, what would you like to see at this Paws Store Galore? And they came up with, gift cards. And so we are doing those things, but those drawings are like every 6 weeks instead of every 2 weeks. So some of the bigger items are pulled out throughout the thing.
Yep.
Out the year.
All we need is pickles.
Yeah. All right,
All right,
terrific.
thank you, Jenny.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
All right. Exciting stuff. Moving on to our final audit report. We've gone from pickles to dollar signs. Welcome back. We have Chelsea McConnell here, familiar face.
Yes,
around
thank
here,
you.
so thanks for coming back.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here this evening to present the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024 audit. So it's always important to remember that although an audit is the highest level of attestation engagement you can have, that it is not absolute assurance. And the district's financial statements are required to comply with generally accepted accounting principles as well as governmental accounting standards, and our audit is required to be conducted under generally accepted auditing standards as well as governmental auditing standards. So as these reports continue to grow in length and complexity, here there's just a really general overview of just your audit report design. So the first thing within this audit report you'll find is our auditor's opinion, followed by management's discussion and analysis, or MD&A. The MD&A is actually required supplementary information, or RSI, which means that it's not actually required under generally accepted accounting principles. However, it is required under governmental accounting standards, and GASB does require you to have that and deems it important enough to be required within this report. Then you have your basic financial statements, and within that section you have both your government-wide financial statements as well as your governmental fund statements. So the requirement for the two different statements, it came from GASB statement number 34. So the government-wide financial statements are on the full accrual basis of accounting, which is very similar to a private sector company, where the fund statements are on the modified accrual basis of accounting, which really focuses on how money flows in and out and what's available for spending at year end. And you also have your internal service fund statements as well as your notes to the financial statements. Following that, you have the rest of your RSI, which is going to contain budgetary comparison schedules as well as pension and other post-employment benefit or OPEB schedules that are required. And following that, you have other supplementary information. In that section, you would find your non-major governmental fund statements as well as your individual fund statements, and you also have your single audit section. So the first thing I'm going to go over is a letter that is not bound within the report, and it is titled Communication with Those Charged with Governance, which is you, the board. So there's a couple key areas of this letter I always like to point out. Management is responsible for the selection and use of appropriate accounting policies, as well as all significant transactions have been recognized in the financial statements in the proper period. In addition, there are some estimates reflected within the financial statements, and some of those are considered significant. So in order to comply with generally accepted accounting principles, oftentimes it is necessary to make estimates within the financial statements. There's certain numbers you may know on any given day that you can reconcile, such as cash, and then other numbers where you have to utilize assumptions and knowledge that you have to reasonably estimate those. A couple of those significant estimates within the financial statements are depreciation expense, which is based on management's assumption of the estimated useful life of capital assets, as well as the estimate of charges to other funds pertaining to the insurance in the internal service funds, and then the pension and the OPEB, which there are just numerous assumptions that go into those calculations. They're very complex, and they're very, very material to your financial statements as well. I am pleased to say that we did not encounter any difficulties during performing our audit, nor did we have any disagreements with management. And the last thing in the letter are just some upcoming GASB standards. One of them that I'm sure is already on the radar is GASB Statement Number 101, Compensated Absences, which we expect to see the compensated absence estimate start to grow. It's going to change the threshold and decrease that threshold for recording that estimate to reasonably certain, which is going to decrease it quite a bit from where it is right now. And so all governments are just going to have to go out and just start to review policies and really start to review that and analyze and evaluate the impact on the governmental entity. So the independent auditor's report can be found on pages 1 to 3. I am pleased to say you were issued an unmodified opinion, which is the best type of opinion you can be issued. It means we do believe the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects, and you'll hear auditors refer to materiality a lot. It's a concept we utilize, and it really changes from each audit. And we also make various risk and internal control assessments, and then we plan and perform our audit. And during that audit process, we gather audit evidence that is sufficient and appropriate for us to base our opinion on. And risks are also evaluated from audit to audit, and they can change depending on facts and circumstances. So all areas of the financial statements receive some sort of substantive testing, but when you have higher risk areas, it just means that we need more audit evidence in order to opine on those areas. So there are auditing standards that say that revenue and management override of controls they're always going to be pretty much high risk across audits. The auditing standard says there's always a fraud risk that exists within those two areas, and thus they are always going to be a significant risk. So it would be very rare to find those two areas as not being a significant risk. In addition, we have GASB statement numbers 68 and 75, which have to do with the pension and OPEB. Those are very significant and very complex, and so those are just higher risk areas. And the last high risk area was internal service funds, and that's just due to the materiality and complexities in accounting for self-insurance funds. Now, on the next slide, you'll find a condensed comparative statement of net position. You'll find the full statement on page 14. So overall assets increased about 6.9 million from 2023, and about 1.3 million of that was current and other assets, and the majority, 5.7 million, was due to capital assets. So the capital asset increase was primarily due to the building improvement projects that have been ongoing over the last several years. And then the increase in current and other assets was mainly due to an increase from other governmental units of about 0.8 million, and that's really just due to timing. In addition, there was an increase in current liabilities of about 2.9 million, and that was due to an increase in accounts payable of about 1 million and unearned revenue of about 1.8 million. The increase in unearned revenue, again, is due to timing. The increase in accounts payable was really just due to the fact that there was an increase in amount owed to contractors for those building improvement projects that were ongoing at year end compared to the prior year. And then we saw a very significant decrease in long-term liabilities of almost $16 million. So anytime you see a huge decrease in long-term liabilities like that in governmental statements, it's almost always due to the pension and OPEB. So those calculations can just cause huge swings. And so we saw that here. So we saw the pension liability decrease about 10 million from 2023. And then we actually saw the OPEB liability become an OPEB asset this year for the first time since GASB 75 was implemented. And so that decreased the long-term liabilities by about 4.2 million. Now, the statement of activities can be found on page 15, but again, I provided just a very summarized and comparative version for us to look at to see maybe what happened between the two fiscal years. So here we can see both revenue and expenses increase between fiscal years, and that was primarily due to an increase in restricted state aid and grants. In addition, we see investment earnings continue to increase due to interest rate increases. Property tax revenue continues to increase due to increases in taxable values. And then the internal service funds, which although they have their own set of statements at the fund level, they are considered governmental activities. So when you look at that government-wide level, those internal service funds do roll into those statements. And those funds had an increase in revenue of about $1.1 million, which led to the increase in the charges for services we see between the fiscal years. And then they also had a correlating increase in expenses of about $0.7 million, which added to that increase in supporting services. But overall, on the government-wide level, the district had an increase of about $10.9 million during fiscal year ended June 30th, 2024. So we talk a lot about pension and other post-employment benefits, or OPEB, because those numbers are just so significant to the financial statements. They're some of the largest numbers, and they're very complex. You are part of the Michigan Public School Employees Retirement System. That's a cost-sharing, multiple employer statewide defined benefit public employee retirement system, and it's also a fiduciary component unit of the state of Michigan. There's almost 700 participating employers within that plan, and there's approximately 396,000 members within the plan. So as I talk about some of these huge numbers, so not only do you have the pension liability and OPEB asset this year, but the pension and OPEB, they come along with some deferred inflows and outflows of resources. So when you take those into account, your pension net is approximately $59 million, and your OPEB net is about $3.8 million. And that's still would be a credit or liability on the OPEB side when you're taking all that into account, even though we have an OPEB asset. So one of the most common questions I get on those is, well, what can we do about it? And really, there's not really anything you can do other than what you've been doing, which is continue to pay that statutorily required contribution. So now a little bit about the governmental funds. So you can find the full governmental fund statements on pages 16 and 17 and 20 and 21. In addition, in that section, after each of those statements, you can find a reconciliation between the government-wide and the fund level statements to see what some of those adjustments are between the two. So the general fund, overall the general fund had an increase in fund balance of about $2.2 million. And the general fund was expected to have an increase in fund balance of about $579,000 based on the final budgeted amount. So you ended the year about $1.6 million above that projection. And the unassigned portion of fund balance increased just under $2 million. One really important ratio I think to look at to measure the general fund's fiscal health is how many days of expenditures are there in that unassigned fund balance. And the Government Finance Officers Association recommends no less than 2 months for that financial measure. So as of year end 2024, the general fund had about 97 days of expenditures in that unassigned fund balance. So you met that GFOA recommendation, which without being significantly above. So sometimes when we look at these general fund, the increase in fund balance or the increase in the unassigned, it sounds like a lot, but when you look at the level of expenditures that you have, the general fund has a lot of expenditures. So you were at about 53.6 million of expenditures. So when you compare it to that, it's not as significant as it sounds. In addition, over the past several years, there's been a significant amount of funding available through coronavirus relief funds, and that's really been able to help school districts, maybe save some fund balance in their general fund for when those funds dry up. And we are seeing some of those, some of those funds are ending already, and it's really close to using up all of those grants and those coronavirus funds that were left. So GASB statement number 96, subscription-based information technology arrangements, or SPITAs. So we did actually implement this last year. However, your district didn't have any material SPITAs to recognize last year. Come year ended June 30th, 2024, there were some. So I just thought I would touch base on it just slightly this year. So what that did was create a right-of-use software arrangement, which is a new capital asset category, and you can find that in the capital asset note, which is note 4 in your footnote disclosures. So typically when you have that right-of-use asset, you have a correlating SPITA liability. In this case, the district did not have any SPITA liability because those subscriptions were prepaid 100%. So you have the asset and you don't have a liability for that SPITA. And now the report on internal controls can be found on pages 102 to 103. Now, internal controls are reviewed for our audit for us to consider how we're going to design and plan our audit. However, it's not for a purpose of us expressing an opinion on the system of internal controls, and we don't actually express an opinion on that system of internal controls because we are really reviewing it for such a limited purpose and limited scope that there could be deficiencies that exist that we just don't identify because of our limited scope on those. So a deficiency in internal control exists when the design or operation of control does not allow management or employees to prevent and detect and correct a material misstatement on a timely basis. So I am pleased to say we did not identify any deficiencies in internal controls we consider to be a significant deficiency or material weakness. Within the single audit, there were 2 compliance items that were reported. They did not have any associated question costs that were identified, and those can be reviewed on pages 120 to 121. Now, the remaining section of the report from pages 108 to the end is the remaining single audit section. So you're required to have a single audit performed if you expend $750,000 or more in federal funds. This threshold will be increasing. It doesn't increase until the district's fiscal year, June 30th, 2026, but it will be increasing to $1 million. So on pages 104 to 106, you can find our independent auditor's report on compliance for each major program and on internal control over compliance required by the uniform guidance. So this is conducted in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, government auditing standards, as well as Title II of the U.S. Code of Federal Regulation, Part 200, or something referred to as the uniform guidance. So I am pleased to say the district was also issued an unmodified opinion, and it means that we do believe you complied with all compliance requirements of the OMB compliance supplement. And then your schedule of expenditures of federal awards, also referred to as a CFA, on pages 108 to 113. Those show all the detail of those federal awards. They do reconcile back to the financial statements at the front on pages 20 to 21. So with that, I'll open it up to if anyone has any questions.
On your report on internal controls, would you feel that doing a more in-depth dig on the internal controls would be beneficial to us as a operation, or do you feel that what you have seen, we are in good standings?
Well, because we didn't identify anything, because we do have the responsibility to review those internal controls from, anything that might affect something within the financial statements. So we do perform various procedures on the internal controls, especially, in relation to financial transactions. So cash receipts, cash disbursements, payroll, capital expenditures, all those areas. We do perform something called walkthroughs, where we walk through various types of transactions. And that's where we really get a good understanding of those internal controls. And so if during that process, something came up, that was maybe small, maybe wasn't a significant deficiency or material weakness, we would still bring that up to management. And so a lot of times those small items get fixed before they become something, large and significant. If there's sometimes boards have, an area where they might be concerned with, and in those cases they could say, someone should review the internal controls in this area. But at this time, we didn't identify anything that was concerning.
Okay.
Anything else? Well, thank you to you and Mary again for your hard work and commitment.
Yes, yeah. Thank you to Mary and everyone in our office. We know how stressful the audit can be and how much work it is and how much we ask for. So, it's really a pleasure to, work with Mary and everyone else that is in her office and works with her.
Thanks. Thank you. Have a great night. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Question, do we need to accept or otherwise acknowledge this report?
We do later on the agenda.
That's in there, that's later, comes later? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. We are, point in our agenda, the citizens or delegations may address the Board of Education. According to Board Policy 0167.3, public participation at board meetings, individuals addressing the board are asked to state their name, address, and their group affiliation. I don't think any of you are coming forward, but I'm just gonna.
Save your breath, Hannah.
Save it, okay. Staff is not coming forward, okay. We have no one else other than staff in the audience for those following along on YouTube. So we will move along to our action items. The first would be the approval of consent agenda items. We have listed the October 28th regular meeting minutes, October 28th closed session minutes, and the November 18th monthly workshop minutes. We would need a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
So moved.
Support.
Anything further? Okay, all in favor, show of hands, please. Okay, thank you, unanimous. Okay, moving on to additional business items, we are at the portion for the second reading of our Neola update package. How do we want to proceed? Do we want to go through individually with all of these, or in group? Anyone have a strong opinion, or an opinion at all?
Do you want a motion on that?
No,
Or just
just good
opinion?
discussion if we want to
Okay.
go one by one, or what people would like to do.
I think we can put them all together right now. I don't recall any issue that we had.
Okay, fair enough.
That's why we did an intensive discussion in the
Correct.
workshop,
Yep,
so.
just making sure nothing had changed now that everyone had a full week to go through them again. So we have policies in front of us that are submitted for a second reading with no changes from the first reading, which was held on November 18th, 2024. And we would need a motion to approve the policies as presented.
So moved.
Support.
Okay, any further conversation? Okay, all in favor, show of hands, please. Okay, thank you, that's unanimous. And then you can see listed below the policies that we did pull out that we wanted to continue to discuss in December. Up next, Wildcat Court property sale approval. Are you speaking on this, or Mary, or both?
Mary? Had to find my documents.
You still have this in your packet? Yep, okay, so the lots in questions are the ones that have little snowflakes or whatever on them.
The asterisks.
The
The
5 of
asterisk,
them.
yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't think of the word. So, looking at a range of $25,000 to $28,000 probably for each lot. I had to talk to the realtor a little bit more, but, just looking for some guidance. Do we want to list all 5 of them at the same time? Do we want to list a couple of them now and maybe a few more in the spring? I just don't know if this time of year is the best year to start.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. I'm wondering if this time of year is not the.
Well, it's not a bad time, because if you want to build something, you don't want to start in July. You want to start as soon as the frost is out of the ground. So I would actually think we should list them all. Take your pick. Instead of, well, I got the one at the end of the street, and I really wanted the one on the corner, but it didn't come up for 5 more months. So.
Okay, all right, well, after Thanksgiving, I'll get with the realtor and we'll get prices set on them and get them listed.
Okay.
Now, what about, we did touch on some stipulations attached to the sale of these, as far as housing size and so on and so forth. Are we going to have say in that, or where with
So,
that process?
we were looking at the same, like, the houses that CT has already constructed on that block, so that we maintain the integrity of the court.
I agree
so
with
it would
that. I'm
be-
just wondering about the process itself. If we're, going to a realtor and saying we're going to list all these, which I frankly agree we should. If we're going to do it, just list them all in case someone does want to have more than one lot, they can do so. But I guess I would just like to see what those stipulations are.
Okay, we can bring those back at the workshop in December, the descriptions of the existing houses and go from there, I guess.
Is that
has
what
the
you're looking
Realtor
for?
discussed
it at all? You have a
I had
Realtor, right?
mentioned it to her, you know, and she said, yeah, we can do that. You can put, you could put build restrictions on them. So, they're all.
Right,
So you can say at least a 1,800 square foot home, attached garage, you know, you can list things like that, so that.
I guess could we have a kind of a sampling of those
Sure,
to, when you bring that back to us in December
sure.
to look at? Because while we want to maintain the integrity, we don't want to put off potential buyers as well. There's a balancing. Because if you put something in that makes it to where you can't, where you can only build a American Foursquare, that's a limitation.
I don't-
I don't know
remember
what
what
you
they
would
all
put
look
into
like.
that, but I do know that sometimes you can preclude a lot of buyers for that reason.
I don't think the floor plans are the same for all of those homes over there. I think they're different, they vary,
That was just a wild example.
yeah.
Right, more of a size or a build restriction in terms of, like, is there a timeline, right? Like, you can buy the lot now, but you have to build within so long, or can they buy the lots and hold on to them? Is there,
I can ask her about that one. I've never seen a, like, timeline on a
yeah,
lot sale, but
So I guess
Can-
the question is, does the board want to approve those deed, I don't know if they're deed restrictions or what, before, or authorize us to put those in place when we sign the contract with the Realtor?
I would like to see them.
So I think we would need approval to move forward to engage in those conversations with the Realtor. And then you would approve what we bring back to you at that point. Does that make sense, Mary?
That's reasonable.
yeah.
Because right now, you're approving us to go ahead and list these for sale, not necessarily with any restrictions on them.
Yeah. So I wouldn't list them until after you guys approve the property descriptions or whatever.
I just think I'd like to hear a little more details on what this actually looks like. We're just saying we're gonna throw stuff up for sale, but without any details, you know. What are the actual estimates on the property? If
Well, I
there's gonna
have-
be any restrictions?
I have the estimates on the property,
Okay.
so the comparables were 25 to 28,000,
25 to 28?
yeah.
I was just curious, I apologize if I missed this earlier. Are there any other sort of neighborhood covenants or homeowners association type fees or anything that, nothing like that?
No, there's no HOA.
Yeah, okay.
So I think what I'm hearing is we should work with the Realtor, come up with the listing and the details, and then bring that back, and you give us the final. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So size,
Yeah,
size of property or building, and what else were we talking about? Write this down. So we've
I
got-
guess I would feel okay with the Realtor's recommendations, but just being able to review them.
Okay.
So would you like a motion of some sort that we can, to,
I think we're just tabling.
Yeah, we can table it, you know, we understand you want us to move forward.
Yep.
So before we sign on the dotted line, so to speak, you would have that approval.
It's to protect the integrity of the current owners and their investment in their property and their home, so.
Okay,
then I move to table this discussion to our December workshop.
Support.
Anything further?
so to move things along, so we're not waiting till right before Christmas, do we want to have a special board meeting also that same day after you've reviewed it at the workshop and then do a special so that we can get them going, or?
I'd support that if
Yeah, I would
if we can
support
have that
that. Get it
information
on the
by
road.
the workshop.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to table this till the next meeting. All in favor? Okay, unanimous on that one, perfect.
President Meinhardt, who moved?
I had AJ made that motion and Gordon Gordon.
Thank you.
Thanks for the backup.
Okay. All right, now we have the audit approval, final APS fiscal year 2024 audit. We would need a motion to receive the audit for the year ending June 30th, 2024.
Can I ask a question on that?
I have a question too, but
Okay.
motion and support.
Well, I didn't want to make it because I didn't know how to. What does it mean when we say receive? Like accept? Is that, are we using the same terms there? Okay, I just,
I mean,
Mary, sorry, can you
a form, it's just a.
get your steps in?
Mary,
Yeah,
steps.
It's just a formality, because the audit is what it is, and it's already been sent to the state, because we have state guidelines driven, so
This is our official
it's just a
acknowledgement of its receipt.
acknowledgement that you
Collectively.
have
Yeah.
seen
Okay.
it and
Yeah, we
basically
received
understand it.
My question actually pertains to the corrective action that they mentioned. Should I save that for our motion and support or ask you now? And I only bring it up because they've given us anticipated completion dates. Are either of these anything that we need to worry about? It sounds to me like they were both, communication issues maybe that popped up in the absence of our CTE director, and they otherwise would not have
Yeah, so
been.
you missed that on Monday.
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
you want to
okay,
see
all
it.
right, yeah, perfect, okay. Well,
But
it surprised me that they actually put a date in here, so I just wanted to state for the record or have it entered that they've been addressed. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect, thank you.
Do you want to speak out, have they all been finalized, addressed, or are they still in the process?
I'm going to talk to the auditors, but we know where the mistake was, they know we know, so there's been conversation back and forth.
Okay.
I don't 100% agree with the assessment, and I'm taking some stuff over there, but like it won't change anything. It won't change the final report, it won't change what was sent to the state.
Okay,
Are you good with that?
yes, I am, thank
Okay.
you, appreciate it.
All right, I would move to receive the audit for the year ending June 30th, 2024.
support.
Okay, anything further? Okay, all in favor, show of hands, please. Okay, that's unanimous as well. Thank you. Thanks again, Mary. Okay, up next, personnel. For our human resources update, we have some new hires. Johanna Doobie is our special education teacher at Alpena, and Jennifer Cheek is a special education teacher at Ala White. Support staff, we have Alexandra Cody, a food service helper, Mackenzie Creekmore, an IA, Jessica Miller, an IA, and Heather Markowski is an IA as well. For resignations, we have Connie Smith as an IA, Daniel Zarski as an IA, Philip Anderson was a cafeteria aide, Mary Clark is an instructional aide, Jillian Howard is an instructional aide, Laura Elch is an instructional aide, Heather Reichenbach is an IA, Nicole Gregory is a math teacher, Amanda Clark is an office assistant. And we have two retirements, and I just want to say thank you to these two. Tracy Erlob is the Dean of Students, and she will be retiring on February 28th of 25 with 30 years of service. And Amy, sorry about your last name. Thank you. Title I teacher at Sanborn will be retiring February 28th, also with 33 years of experience. And then we also need a motion for our two professional staff. My flyer
We
has
have three on
other names. Are we,
GSRP.
Jamie, I have professional staff, Jamie Snyder, GSRP. and
Oh,
then-
you know what, I printed this off and then we added
We added-
her on there.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah, so that, we had those.
Thank you.
Yep.
So effective January 2nd.
Yes.
Okay. So, and then we also had a support staff, but that one's a little bit, the Mackenzie Creekmore.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we would need a motion to approve the hiring of the new professional staff after completion of proper certification, testing, and other HR requirements.
So moved.
Support.
Anything further? Okay, all in favor, show of hands, please. Okay, Dr. Lawson, gifts.
Another wonderful batch of gifts to the district. William and Jackie Herbert donated $500 to the McKinney-Vento homeless and at-risk students. Ruth and Dennis Rabo donated $30 for McKinney-Vento homeless and at-risk students. Walmart donated 4 new bikes valued at $447 to Sanborn Elementary for walkathon prizes. Walmart Vision Center donated vision wellness kits valued at $700 to all APS schools. Resurrection Lutheran Church donated backpacks and other school supplies valued at $100 to Lincoln Elementary. Lori Boucher donated a brand new coat, several pairs of gloves, and hats valued at $40 to Lincoln Elementary School. Mitch Connon donated winter supplies, 3 sweaters, 2 blankets, 4 toothbrushes, 4 pairs of mittens and gloves, 7 pairs of socks, and 7 hats, valued at $100 to the students of ACES Academy. Dean Arbor Ford donated $600 to AHS Athletics for the Drive for Athletes promotion. George Studley of Dean Arbor Ford donated $50 to Mrs. Kelly Poley's 6th grade English creative writing class at Thunder Bay Junior High School. Alpena Area McDonald's donated $750 to AHS Athletics. Up North Prevention donated $3,000 to help support the AHS online learning room with furniture.
I move to accept the gifts listed above with gratitude and thank the donors in writing for the generous gifts.
Support.
Okay, anything else? Okay, all in favor, show of hands, please. Okay, next opportunity for citizens or delegations to address the board. Information and proposals. No letters and communications at this time. Reports and information from the superintendent and staff.
All right, so we touched on our National Fitness Campaign Fitness Court at the workshop, and we have been approved. Our application for the grant has been approved. Non-committal at this point. There's still many steps to go through, and now we can really see what this process looks like. You know, for what it's worth, the grant award range was between $30,000 and $60,000, and we were awarded $50,000. So right in the middle there. There's a timeline with things, next steps in this process, so I'll share that with you in my board update this week, so you can kind of look through that. December 17th would be the first step in this, and we just have to complete a letter of intent. And again, it's just a letter of intent. We're not signing on to anything formally, just moving that process forward. So anyway, you know, the letters there, it was a good, you know, they were very complimentary of our application and everything, but we'll see what it turns out to be. We've been talking about the blood donor process too at the workshop. You have a couple of documents. In most particular, you have the AG. You have an informational piece there from, just an example, this one here. But what we were talking about is our policy really does not need to be changed. It's the administrative guideline and the form that is required to be filled out in order to donate blood. And there was some discrepancy between those two, but up to 14 days after donating blood, you are not allowed to participate in strenuous activity. So you see the changes. Again, the board action isn't required to change administrative guidelines or those forms, but you see in the green that we would just make that requirement or those conditions lists that you wait until the next day after giving blood before engaging in athletic and strenuous activities. So we have the changes to both the form that would need to be filled out and also the administrative guideline in that. Then I shared the Sex Education Advisory Committee process with you in my update. And again, that's another, the questionnaire and the process doesn't need board approval. The only thing that would need board approval potentially is if you wanted to document that 9-member desire from the board. But if you looked at the documents, I've put that into each of the documents that we use, saying that we want 9 members. It takes the board language on what the makeup of the committee should be. I simplified the application process just to make it a one-sheeter. It still gathers the information that we need, and then ultimately the applications come to the board anyway for selection. So if everyone's good with that, we would get that launched, probably right when we come back from Thanksgiving break. We'd put the call out for people, and then either December's workshop, if we get a great response, or, the workshop regular meeting, or January for sure, we should be able to officially assemble that committee going forward. Just met with the AEA. Thank you, Lisa. We have, they're taking the 25-26 calendar to their membership for approval. And then in the process, it comes back to the board for your approval. And right now, it looks, we will have fewer half-days, so we will have more full days of PD and student days off. We'll be getting off at the end of the year around, I think both versions are on the 11th, if I'm not mistaken, of June. And then the only thing it mentioned, we're aligning our spring break with all of the colleges and with our AMA 5-year calendar. And so that's being moved forward. So we've just presented two calendars to the AEA. And if both work out, then whatever is actually approved, we can move forward instead of having to go back and redevelop the calendar. So we should have that for you for the December board meeting to approve, review and approve, and then everyone can head off into the new year with their plans for the next school year. And with that, happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
Thanks. Going back to the blood donors, the bottom of the AG form, it just says that a copy of this guideline would be included in the information packet. I just wondered exactly what was in that information packet.
Yeah, for the, at the start of each sport season.
Yeah.
So
all this.
there's just a number of documents that are related to being on the athletic team, so it'd be in that packet.
I remember the concussion one, but
All the stuff you get at the
Yep.
right to know
So with
meeting,
that,
I believe.
like this, was this something that was being included, or you just gave it to us for reading to go along with this?
Yep, we'll put together, because you had shared a couple,
Yep.
and we had a community member share a couple. So we just kind of customize our own little informational sheet about donating blood.
Yeah, I did think it was helpful just from a parent perspective. Just nice to be able to read pros and cons to donating, especially for an athlete, and then I feel like the parent can make a more informed decision if what's right for their child, so.
Yeah, and I guess just for the public's knowledge too, so we've reviewed Red Cross guidance, we've reached out to the local health department and some other agencies just to see what kind of guidance there is on blood donors or donated blood, and our recommendation falls in line with all of those, or our changes.
Great. Anything else on your end?
That is it.
Okay, we will move on to information and questions from board members.
I have a sort of a question which might require some institutional knowledge. I'm wondering, has the composition of the Board of Education ever been over 50% women?
Not
And
to my knowledge.
The reason I ask is, I remember there was one meeting where we were, one of my first meetings, I believe, we were deciding on who to appoint, and I remember Gordon gave us a lecture stating that we should not allow this to become an old boys club. And I think with our new board members coming on in January, being 4 women to 3 men, I think we can say we've achieved this, and if that's a milestone, I think we should acknowledge it.
Yeah, great.
All
I
right.
think it may be.
Not sure, I haven't been around long enough. Might be true, think it's true. First time the.
Yep.
Gordon, you've been here a while.
Yeah, yes, I am.
Anything else from our board members?
I do have something, and it's kind of in this vein of transformations, and it's a request. I did not anticipate that this would be an issue within my family, but it's become one. And I think I need to just make this request to you all in this venue rather than speak to you privately, or, and then, I think it's just important that we keep it here. As you all know, there's a tradition of staff and board members being able to present their children with diplomas upon their graduation. I will not be a board member when my youngest graduates, and I did not think that this would be a particular problem, but apparently it's a problem. So I am officially requesting that perhaps an exception to that might be made, and if at all possible, could I give Mel her diploma this coming June? So it's, it's something that we can consider if need be, but as I said, I didn't anticipate it would be an issue, but apparently when our exchange son last year graduated, I was able to do that. Of course, Mel was hotly anticipating that she would have that as well, and suddenly that's not going to happen. So I come to you with that request, so thank you.
I think it's
Appreciate it.
funny that you asked, maybe it's my mom heart, but I actually thought maybe you would run again just so you could hand out the diploma.
Well, I think she
So-
probably would have, had she been a little more, a part of those conversations when we had them, I think she would have said, that's the reason you need to stay. And I probably would have had to have a conversation about, well, maybe there's more reasons other than that. So I'm glad I didn't have to have that conversation.
It's not my decision, but I definitely support that for sure.
I kind of doubt that it's in our policy anywhere, but if it is, all we have to do is change it to allow board member emerita or emeritus.
That's kind of
yeah, I
where
don't think it's
I don't think
policy,
it's anything official that I've ever encountered,
Yeah,
but
no.
it's just
And
kind of
cool.
been a tradition.
Staff members
Staff
can
does
do
it.
that.
Yeah.
Staff can do that too.
It's
So,
just sort of been a tradition.
Can we put that on December's, the workshop? The agenda to,
You just approve it.
Yeah, I mean, my just reaction is it's not a policy. I can't believe I've seen it anywhere. I do know that we just, want to be careful of if
Setting a
you,
precedent.
then we do get
Yes.
a lot of requests from, not a lot, but we have gotten requests from former, but they're separated by a number of years, former employees and things like that, so. Yeah,
Well, it's not my intention to.
it is your graduation
can of
ceremony,
worms,
it's
but-
the board that's providing it, so.
Well, and there
And
are
that's
some,
this year, June?
yes,
You were a
yes.
sitting board member for the current school year, I would see no problem with that in
Okay.
my mind.
Okay, perfect. Well, there are some logistic concerns because there's robes and, all those types of things, so, but I do appreciate that. So if
Yeah.
it needs to be discussed further, that's fine too, but.
Yeah, I don't feel it
figured I'd
does.
bring it up because we've got some time, so.
It's not
Does
policy,
anyone
I feel.
I mean, anyone have any more institutional knowledge of it, or?
It's been around forever, but I think that's, they're brought up a very valid point. You're sitting now, and you're started.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay, approved.
thank you all.
I was hoping it was a reason that you'd had to run again, but,
Well, you never know.
You never know. Okay, I think I already put all my stuff away, but looking ahead, obviously we have Thanksgiving break and a whole spread of great musical events happening at our schools over the next month. A literacy night at Besser on December 3rd, all sorts of great concerts and musical performances by our young people, and our next workshop then will be December 9th here at 5:30. Sounds like we'll likely have a meeting to follow that, to take action on some lots. And then our regular board meeting on December 16th. And with that, we can adjourn.
All right.